Hey, everybody, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. This should be yet another great late night conversation. I'm really glad to be here to engage with all of you. It's been a very eventful day. You probably saw how stressed out I was last night, but everything worked out. God was with us. So let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. I have had a very eventful day. I will tell you all about it. I'm sure many of you have already seen the videos and such, but yeah, it's been a very eventful day. We're going to do this live stream tonight, just like we always do our live streams, where I give my opening remarks. And then from there, we have a roll call where I call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. And then from there, I answer your super chat or Rumble rant questions for the remainder of the night. So if you got something you want to talk to me about in the second half of our show, that would be great. Send me a super chat, send me a Rumble rant, and I will answer your questions. That's the way it works. So yeah, if you got something you want to talk to me about, by all means, send a Rumble rant or a super chat, and I will answer it. Quick announcements. Just a couple announcements. That we do have. Hold on, just deleting some things here. Oh, that's not the right image. All right, hold on. Just trying to get things on the screen here. Morning messages on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. We do have morning messages every morning on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. We had a great morning message from Gabby. Shout out to Gabby. She did a great morning message this morning. I've got another one that we'll be lining up for tomorrow. So if you want to start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism, please subscribe to the CPI YouTube channel and tune in every morning for a morning message. We do our best to have a morning message every morning on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. That is what we do. We want to keep people engaged. We want to give you a community to be plugged into. So we've got that. And if you feel inspired and you like what we do here, and you would like to support other members of the community, we request that you make a morning message. We want to hear from you, and other members of the community want to hear from you. We have a special link now where you can make your own morning message as a way to support other members of the Center for Political Innovation YouTube innovation community. We have morning messages. Great morning message from Gabby. And that was this morning. We got another one lined up for tomorrow. Just submit morning messages. It's a great way to support other people in the community. We need to be there for each other, and we need to stay engaged in these crazy times. Another announcement. If you are in the Washington, D.C. area, I am going to be speaking at a rally in Washington, D.C. on Saturday to support the Uhuru movement, the People's Democratic Uhuru movement. Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, the Uhuru Three. They were found not guilty of being Russian agents, but they were convicted of conspiracy. And there's a big rally in Washington, D.C. to support them that is happening this Saturday. I will be speaking at that rally, the Black is Back March, the annual Black is Back March in Washington, D.C. I'll be there. So if you want to support the Uhuru 3 and you want to stand with Chairman O'Malley and you want to stand with the Uhuru movement at a time they're facing persecution, they've got their sentencing coming up, come to the rally. The Black is Back March is happening, and I am confirmed to be a speaker at this Washington, D.C. rally. So if you want to support the Uhuru movement and oppose the emerging police state and the repression of anti-imperialist activists in America, come out to Washington, D.C. I'll be posting more information about the rally, but it's the annual Black is Back March, the rally to support the Uhuru 3. It's happening this Saturday. I will be a speaker. So on that note, we're going to get right into our opening remarks for tonight, the way these live streams are set up. First, we have our opening remarks, then we have the roll call, and then I answer questions. So if you got something you want me to talk about, do what Deborah, our great friend Deborah out in Mexico, she sent us a super chat. We do appreciate it. If you got a question, you got a comment, you got something you want me to respond to, by all means, send in a super chat or a rumble rant for the second half of our show. Wow, folks. Wow. It has been quite a day. And part of the reason you can tell is that it is 11:08 p.m. here in New York City, and I'm still drinking Diet Coke because I am exhausted, but I want to be here for all of you. So I'm actually still caffeinating at this hour. That's how exhausted I am. Usually I would not touch Diet Coke after 8 or 9 at night, after 6 at night usually. But tonight, in order to give you all the show that you deserve and to keep myself going through all of this, I've got my unnamed diet beverage here. And I'm continuing to drink my unnamed diet beverage because it's been a long day. It has been a long day. So for those of you who may not be familiar, the organization that I am part of is the Center for Political Innovation. And the Center for Political Innovation, we have an operation, we have been running called Peace MAGA, where we have a banner that says only peace can make America great again. And we have been doing our best to unfurl this banner across New York City as much as we can. We debuted it on October 2nd at Trump Tower. Shout out to Noah, shout out to Irving, shout out to Briggy, shout out to Phil. We were able to debut it at Trump Tower October 2nd. We then took it on Thursday. We took it to New York Public Library on Thursday. And today we took it to Madison Square Garden, where Trump had his epic mega rally to basically close out his campaign. And we were there, and I will be showing the video from that later tonight. It was absolutely epic. And I got to tell you, Donald Trump's campaign has taken on a more and more anti-war tone in the last couple months. Tulsi Gabbard was on the stage, heard her speech, amazing. Robert Kennedy was on the stage, heard his speech, amazing. Dr. Phil, hello, I'm Dr. Phil. He was on the stage. He was amazing. Dr. Phil endorsed Donald Trump, gave an amazing speech endorsing Donald Trump. Donald Trump was on stage. It was amazing. And the support that we got from the crowd of people out there today was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. The amount of support, the amount of people that were giving us thumbs up and backing us and saying that we were absolutely right in our message. Only peace can make America great again. Honoring, saying it was a good thing when Trump met with Kim Jong-un. It was amazing. And the amount of outreach we got out there, the amount of support we got from Trump supporters, it was awesome. And I got to tell you, there's a lot I could say, and I do want to address it because there's some people who do not get what we are doing, right? There are some people that see us out there doing what we're doing, and they say, well, Trump is pro-Israel. or they say, well, Trump is not an anti-imperialist. He's a billionaire. What are you doing? What are you doing? And they don't understand what we're doing, right? They don't understand how important what we're doing is. And so I am going to try and get you to understand, first of all, why is it that we are having the most peculiar and bizarre election in my lifetime? We have never had an election that was this weird. When Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, it wasn't this weird. This has got to be the weirdest election that we have ever had. And we were out there here. Oh, shout out to Garland, my good friend Garland, my good friend and colleague Garland. Shout out to Garland Nixon. Always great. Let me show you on the screen an image from today. We were out there today. I'll just show you. This is like a still photo of when we were out there today. But some people just don't get what it is that we're doing, and I'm gonna explain to you what we're doing. But I'm also going to explain to you what's happening in our society, because it doesn't make any sense. That's us. That was us outside Madison Square Garden today. We got the banner with Trump and Kim shaking hands. Only peace can make America great again. Wow. Shout out to everybody who was helpful today. I mean, wow. The volunteers, the folks from Manhattan Family Church, and from Codon USA, and my old friend Pella. Shout out to Pella, who came out today, and Phil, and my goodness. I mean, it was very difficult to do what we did today, and we did it. But I'm going to tell you what's going on in the ruling class. There are some things that I know, and I know very, very, very well. And shout out to Gala, right? We're all piling in here. There are some things that I know very, very well. And those are the things that I am going to share with you tonight, to get you to understand why this amazing mega rally just happened in Madison Square Garden, and why the ruling elites of the United States are fighting with each other like you wouldn't believe. So for those of you who may not be aware, the reason that this rally was such a big deal wasn't just that Donald Trump is running for president and he's beating the drum of opposing the wars and saying that he wants to make peace with Russia, and he wants to get Russia and Ukraine to stop the fighting. He wants to lift sanctions on countries around the world. It's not just because of that. New York City is a Democrat Party stronghold, right? In New York City, the Democratic Party primary is the election. And we have a mayor who is a Democrat, Eric Adams. But Eric Adams is also a longtime former police officer. And Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, is indicted right now because allegedly somebody in Turkey, some Turkish government officials, they upgraded one of his flights, right? Donald Trump was joking about it from the stage tonight. They upgraded one of his flights. He's indicted under the Foreign Agents Registration Act for being a foreign unregistered lobbyist of Turkey, getting financial support from Turkey. And they are trying to throw the mayor of New York City in jail. And they have raided the homes of a number of high-ranking NYPD officers. And there is a big fight in the ruling class. Now, for those of you who may also not be aware, Donald Trump, the presidential candidate, has also been indicted and had his home raided by the federal government. Oh, and while we're at it, in addition to that, Sue Mi Terry, who is the top advisor on Korea-related matters she was the top advisor for the Bush White House, for the Obama White House. She was a longtime CIA operative. She has been indicted for being an agent of South Korea. And she has been charged, and she's facing criminal charges, and she's been expelled from the Council on Foreign Relations, and she's facing criminal charges. Now, we're not shocked that they raided the homes of the People's Democratic Uhuru Movement and Chairman O'Malley, and we're not shocked that they raided the homes of Scott Ritter, because this is what they do to anti-imperialist activists, people that are mobilizing against wars. But this is a little bit of a different situation. We have the mayor of New York City, a longtime top cop in New York City, and the mayor of the city who's indicted. We have the top CIA anti-North Korea activist, anti-North Korea propagandist. She's been indicted. We have Donald Trump, who is the top presidential candidate who's leading in the polls in this presidential election. He has been indicted. What is going on here? Well, I can tell you what's going on here because I understand some things related to economics. And I understand that we live in a system where profit is in command, right? The capitalist mode of production is a system in which the economy is organized to maximize profits for private owners. And that capitalism has a problem that no other system before in history had ever had, which is poverty created by abundance. In systems of the past, when people were homeless, it was because there wasn't enough housing to go around. In systems of the past, when people were hungry, it was because there wasn't enough food to go around. But capitalism is a system that has created a new kind of poverty, poverty created by abundance. In capitalism, people are homeless because there are too many houses. People are hungry because there is too much food. In fact, the U.S. government buys huge amounts of cheese from dairy farmers around the country and buries it in a cave just to keep the price of dairy high enough that the farmers section of the United States economy doesn't collapse. I mean, there are many, many examples of this. There's the very famous coal miner's riddle that I often recite. The little boy says to his father, "Why is it so cold?" The father says, "Because we can't afford any coal to heat the stove and keep our house warm." And the little boy says to the father, he says, "Why can we not afford any coal to heat the stove in our house?" He says, "Because I lost my job. I've been laid off. I used to work at a coal mine, but I got laid off from my job at the coal mine." And the little boy says to his father, "Why did you get laid off from your job at the coal mine?" He says, "Because there is too much coal." That doesn't make any sense now, does it? Self-driving cars, right? Tesla, Elon Musk is talking about self-driving cars. He's getting us pretty close to having cars that drive themselves. That should be great. That should be an amazing thing, right? Imagine that this form of human labor called driving was no longer necessary, right? No one had to drive anymore because the cars were safe enough. They could just drive themselves. That should be an awesome thing, but not under our system. Under a system where production is completely governed by profit, self-driving cars would lead to riots in the streets because millions of truck drivers would lose their jobs, and millions of cab drivers would lose their jobs, and millions of Uber drivers would lose their jobs, and millions of traffic court employees would lose their jobs, and millions of state highway patrolmen would lose their jobs, and millions of toll booth operators would lose their jobs. There would be all kinds of people who would lose their job because humanity advanced beyond having to have somebody behind the wheel driving a car. That doesn't make any rational sense. It doesn't make any rational sense. And if you look at the history of capitalism as an economic system, when there is a prolonged crisis of economics, right? When you have the Great Depression of the 1930s, when you have all the panics that preceded World War I, it's because there's great technological leaps. Great technological leaps lead to long-term economic crises because of the fact that human labor power is the source of all wealth, and poverty is a result of abundance. And when it becomes easier than ever to churn out goods, the result is people being poorer than ever and not being able to buy those goods. And pretty soon the market is glutted with products that cannot be sold, and you have an economic meltdown. And this is an understanding of economics I've spent my adult life learning. And this is called the problem of overproduction or the value crisis. It's the tendency of the falling rate of profit, and it is the irrationality of having profits in command. And the other thing that I do know, in addition to knowing that why we're in a global economic crisis right now is because of great technological advancements, which makes no sense. The other thing that I know is that we don't just live in a closed economy, right? We don't just have a US economy for the United States. We have a global economy. And that the world is ruled by big bankers, these international monopolies, trusts, cartels, and syndicates, the ultra monopolies, the international financial oligarchy, imperialism, these huge multinational corporations that have stretched their tentacles all over the world. They dominate the global economy. And this is capitalism in its monopolistic stage of imperialism. Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, defined by the export of capital, where the corporations based in Britain and France and America and Germany have exported themselves around the world. We're not exporting products, we're exporting the corporations themselves. And the main thing that these imperialist monopolies do is that they hold back economic development. As they set up shop in Africa and they put all the African businesses out of business. They keep the people in Africa very, very poor, and they force them to buy all their products from the Western countries. That when the British Empire went to India, I always use this example. The people of India had been weaving in looms for thousands of years, but then the British Empire showed up and it burned all the looms down. And instead, the people of India were forced to import their cloth from the British Empire, from the British textile monopolies. Nigeria, they've got loads of oil in Nigeria, and oil is a very valuable commodity on the global economy. So you would think that that Nigeria would be a very wealthy country, but it's not, because the oil of Nigeria belongs to ExxonMobil and BP and Shell and Chevron. These British and American companies have exported themselves to Nigeria, and they're the ones extracting the wealth from Nigeria's oil. And the Nigerian people are largely impoverished. There's a high rate of illiteracy. There's a low life expectancy. There's a high rate of infant mortality because they do not control their own economy. The corporations, the big monopolies based in the West, dominate their economy. Mexico, they've been growing their own food since the time of Christopher Columbus. Since before Christopher Columbus ever showed up, they've been growing their own food. But American agribusiness crushed the farming sector of Mexico. And sure, you've got farms in Mexico, but those farms belong to Kraft and Monsanto and American agribusiness giants, and the Mexican farming sector has been demolished by the North American Free Trade Agreement, by these big monopolies that dominate the Mexican economy based in the United States. And that this system, where big, huge monopolistic corporations stretch their tentacles across the world and hold back development, this is called imperialism. And the imperialist economy is the economy of the United States. It is the economy of Britain. It is the economy of France. It is the economy of Germany. And that system dominates the world. But there is a new economy arising around the world that is challenging the power of imperialism. And that is the anti-imperialist economy. And that is the economy that came into existence because of the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, because of the Chinese Revolution of 1949, because of the Islamic Revolution of Iran in 1979, because of the Bolivarian revolutions of Latin America, because of Ba'athist Arab socialism in Iraq and Syria, because of African socialism in Ghana, because of Zimbabwe and their anti-colonial struggle to defeat Rhodesia, because of Nelson Mandela and his effort to defeat apartheid in South Africa, because of Vietnam and Ho Chi Minh, because of Fidel Castro. There's this whole new economy in the world today, right? And it's not, you can't call it capitalism and socialism like it was during the Cold War, right? The Iranians are adamant, we are not communists. They are Muslims. They are religious believers. You know, they say Marxism is opposed to their system. They call their system not capitalism, but Islam. And in Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution was overthrown, right? And they had Yeltsin and free market capitalism in the 90s. And then Putin came in and he put the oil and gas under public ownership. And now, with an ideology of Orthodox Christianity and Russian nationalism, they have a new economy in Russia that is very strong, but not Marxist, not communist, but it's independent. It is independent. And you can go to many different parts of the world, right? In Nicaragua, their slogan is Christianity, socialism, and solidarity. You can go to different corners of the world. In West Africa, there has been a wave of anti-colonial revolutions recently. Countries like Mali and Niger and Gabon have taken control of their resources, and this whole new economy that exists around the world that has broken out of the Western system is rising, right? China has lifted 800 million people out of poverty. And you have the BRICS, which includes countries like India and Brazil, along with countries like Russia and China. And you have the BRICS that is developing this new economy that is developing. And you have China building high-speed railway. You have new highways being constructed. You have the China-Pakistan economic corridor. You have this whole new economy that is arising around the world. You have Africa rising up from poverty. You have Latin America asserting its independence. And the response of the big monopolies in the West is that they have decided they're going to declare war on this new economy. They're going to crush it with sanctions. They're going to destabilize and overthrow governments. And they're going to declare war on this new economy so that they can stay at the top. Meanwhile, because of those problems that I first described with technology, because of the irrational nature of technology and how in this system abundance creates poverty, and because of the computer revolution, the Western imperialist homelands, Britain, France, Germany, the United States, are having a prolonged societal crisis. And the roads are being unpaved, and the water is not properly purified, and living standards are going down. And the country is falling apart. And the power grid in Texas collapsed a couple years ago in the middle of the winter, and hundreds of people died as a result. And the country, the United States overall, we have water that's not being properly purified. We have bridges that are insecure and collapsing. We have a situation where the Western countries don't have domestic economies anymore. Instead, they are dominated by these huge multinational corporations, these big monopolies, these imperialists, and they have left the homelands to rot. And we're at the point where the same thing that they've been doing to Africa for hundreds of years, and the same thing that they've been doing to Asia for hundreds of years, the same thing they've been doing to South America for hundreds of years, these huge multinational corporations are now doing to parts of their own homeland. And if you go to Pennsylvania, you go to Ohio, you go to Texas, you go to Alabama, you go to Georgia, you're starting to see the deterioration of parts of America into third world conditions as these ultra monopolies fight to hold on to their position at the center of the world economy. And as they try to maximize their profits, and as living standards go down, and technology creates a situation where there's a need for fewer and fewer workers at the assembly line, the imperialist system is in crisis. And the BRICS countries are rising, and we're in a situation where the imperialists, the big monopolies, are openly discussing whether or not it's time for World War III, all-out war to preserve their system. And they're thinking about it. And they're thinking about locking down our country, the United States and Britain, and locking our countries down and going into all-out war to defeat the BRICS and to defeat the new economy that's arising around the world. That's what they're thinking about. And it is the ultra monopolies. It is ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, and Chevron. It is General Electric. It is the Silicon Valley fascists, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. These ultra monopolies, they are thinking that in order to preserve their system, they've got to create some kind of authoritarian system here in the West, and they've got to go all in against the BRICS countries. That's the only way they can imagine staying at the top of the world. And they have decided that the problems that I just described of poverty created by abundance and technology, having fewer room for workers at the assembly line, they think the way to resolve that is to depopulate. Bill Gates is a Malthusian. He thinks there is too many people in the world. He's a big believer in abortion and birth control and forcible depopulation. They think we've just got to reduce the human race. We gotta just cut down on humanity so that we can save our system from a prolonged crisis. And that is what they are trying to do. Meanwhile, if you go to Russia, they're trying to increase the birth rate, and they're actually trying to give tax incentives to increase the birth rate in Russia right now. And around the world, the sections of the world that are rising up from poverty in Africa and China and Asia and South America, they want to increase the population because more human beings means more labor power to create more wealth. It means more creativity, more productivity. So there are two systems in the world that are clashing. One system is based on greed, individualism, and death and forcible degrowth, right? The ultra monopolies are deciding that in order to stay in power, they need to lock down the world. They need to move toward World War III. They need to drive down the population, reduce consumption, and create this authoritarian low-wage police state. Meanwhile, in Russia and China and Iran and Venezuela and Nicaragua and Cuba and Venezuela and Zimbabwe and so many parts of the world, people have broken out of this system and they're saying, we want growth. We want technology to advance. We want to build. We want to construct, right? And this is the global crisis that is taking place. And the election in the United States, which I think this is the most important election of my lifetime by far. I'm 36 years old. I have never seen an election that is this important, right? This election is taking place because the bulk, the majority of the ruling class of the United States, in numbers, not in wealth, but in numbers, does not want degrowth. It doesn't want the low-wage police state, and it doesn't want World War III. Meanwhile, the ultra monopolies, who have the bulk of the wealth, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the DuPonts, the Rothschilds, the Silicon Valley tech monopolies, Jeff Bezos, people like that, they don't care, right? And they are committed to the low-wage police state, and they are working out the details of how they can create this authoritarian low-wage police state and how they can march us toward World War III. They are working out the details. At this very moment, and they are working out the details of how they can build this authoritarian police state at this very moment and how they can march us toward a new world war. And that is what they are planning to do. And it is very frightening. It is very, very frightening to see the way things are going right now. The world is moving in a very, very dangerous direction. And there is a big division among the American elite, a big division about how to handle this crisis. And the bulk of the rich and powerful in the United States want to continue having economic growth. They want peace with Russia and China because they don't want the catastrophe of World War III. But the ultra rich and the most powerful institutions, the entrenched global financial elite, that international oligarchy, the upper echelons of imperialism, they are absolutely determined. They are absolutely determined to march toward World War III and to implement the low-wage police state no matter what. And so there's a fight within the ruling class. And as you can see, they are imprisoning members of their own class. They are raiding the homes of members of their own class. There is a fight within the security apparatus. The FBI is fighting among itself. The CIA is fighting among itself. The intelligence agencies and the circles of power are battling among each other because they are trying to resolve a crisis, a systemic crisis that they think can't be solved, and that is what they are trying to do, and that's the situation that we're in, and so how do we deal with it? What do we do? Well, we think that ultimately the only future that America has is breaking out of this imperialist system. But how can we do it? By just yelling at it? Is that the answer? Do we just yell at it? We just say, it's bad, and we just yell at it? Well, no. Right? Do we just scream communism at it? Oh, communism's the answer. Is that going to help things? Obviously not. Okay, so what do we do? How do we break out of this system? How do we fix this? Well, we build a block of people here in America who believe in economic growth, who love their country, and who reject the march toward World War III and want to connect with this new economy that's rising, the BRICS economy, the new economy centered around Russia and China. How do we build a block of people in the United States who, for a variety of reasons, a variety of different reasons, want a new America? Want an America that is pro-growth and pro-family and pro-expansion and pro-optimism, that rejects death and war and low-wage police state, but instead believes in growth and optimism and truth and the American dream. How do we build a block of people that can implement a program to restructure the United States so that it is not part of this decaying system? And that is what we urgently need to do. We need to build a block of people within the United States who want economic growth and who want the United States to be part of the new economy that's emerging around the world, not part of this dying imperialist economy that is leading us toward World War III. And so the Center for Political Innovation, we've put forward a 4-point economic program. But it's centered around the slogan, we need a government of action to fight for working families, which is what we need. We need a government that is actively working to change society, to make life better for working families, a government that fights for working families against the big monopolies. And we have a 4-point economic program, which is a mass mobilization to rebuild the country, hire the unemployed and put them to work building a whole new country, paving the roads, building railways, building highways and high-speed trains and new universities and new power plants, etc. A mass mobilization to rebuild, number one. Number two, we need to put our natural resources, our oil, our gas, our coal, our timber, the natural wealth of this country into public ownership. Number three, we need to establish a national bank so that the lending of money can be done strategically with an economic plan to rebuild the country and make it more prosperous. Instead of just having the chaos of the market determine the lending of money, the credit strings need to be in the hands of the state. And so that the state can strategically plan out economic growth. And then from there, we can implement an economic bill of rights. The right to a job, the right to housing, the right to education, the right to health care. And we don't see these things as a handout. Oh, we just give it to people. Oh, we're giving people some free stuff. We see it as an investment because wealth is produced by human labor and human creativity. That is the source of the wealth in the world. So if we want a wealthy, prosperous country, we need the labor power of every person to be utilized. Every person should be employed so that they can go out and build and construct and build a strong country. And on top of that, if we're going to have a strong country, we need our population to be educated. They need good education. They need to understand the world around them. We need an educated population. On top of that, we need a healthy population. If we're going to have a strong country, people who go out and construct and build, we're going to need to have a country full of people that have good health. And we want to create an economic bill of rights to invest in our people, to invest in our population, to mobilize and control our natural resources and our banking system, and to mobilize the population to go out and build. And from there, we can build a strong America that would be connected to this new economy. Because defeating the power of the big oil companies and the big monopolies that control our natural resources, and defeating the power of the big international bankers like Bank of America and Exxon Mobil and HSBC Bank and the big banking elite, defeating them would be defeating the imperialists. We ultimately need a new America beyond imperialism, beyond this decaying international financial system of imperialism that is promoting degrowth. Now, if I were to have said this 5-10 years ago, and I don't even really want to focus on this tonight, but we'll just quickly touch on this. If I were to have said this 5-10 years ago, you would have said, well, Caleb, you're a communist. And I would have said, yes, sirree, Bob, I am a communist. But nowadays, there is a woke left that is out there, and they don't believe in anything I just said. In fact, they think what I just said about an international financial system and big bankers, they say that's anti-Semitic. And they absolutely don't believe that we need economic growth because growth is bad. That's the problem with capitalism, is there's just so much growth. Degrowth is the future. And they believe in depopulation, and they want limited resources. And in fact, the woke left, many of whom speak in the name of socialism, democratic socialism, communism, anarchism, the woke left are nothing but the foot soldiers of the big monopolies to kick around the lower levels of capital. Right? We were at the rally today supporting Trump and saying that only peace can make America great again. And Donald Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un was a great thing. And that Donald Trump's vision of building and constructing a new America, that's what we're all about. And he doesn't take it far enough, but we think it was a great thing. That's what we're about. The woke left was there calling Donald Trump a Nazi, comparing Donald Trump to Hitler, accusing Donald Trump's supporters of being white supremacists, even though many of them were not white. The woke left are nothing. The so-called communists and socialists in America are nothing but the foot soldiers of the big monopolies. They want to destroy working families. They want to impoverish working families. And they are more anti-Russia and anti-China and anti-Iran and anti-Venezuela than anybody else. They're tied in with the George Soros regime change apparatus, the people who brought down the Soviet Union and replaced it with insane free market policies that destroyed the country. They are the people that have destabilized so many countries. And in the name of women's rights or LGBT rights or freedom or whatever, they've created so much instability. They are the people who took Libya, the most prosperous country on the African continent, and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, and Samantha Power, the woke feminist human rights activist who was working for the Obama administration. They took Libya, the most prosperous African country, a socialist country in Africa, and destroyed it and reduced Libya to rubble and chaos. People are now drowning in the Mediterranean trying to get out. So we're not part of the left. The left is satanic. The left is obsessed with pornography. The left is obsessed with demonizing people, cancel culture, inciting people against each other. It is obsessed with degrowth and impoverishment. It peddles resentment and jealousy and all the worst emotions. We are not part of the left. You can't be part of the left. At one point, if you talk this way, maybe you could be part of the left. People would recognize that restructuring the economy, defeating the power of the big monopolies, fighting for the working class, people saw that as part of being the left. But nowadays, that is not what the left is about. The left are the foot soldiers of the big monopolies. The left are the people pushing degrowth. So we are not part of the left. But we're not on the right either, because the right believes that free enterprise will magically fix things. The market will just magically fix things. We just get the government out of the way. The big monopolies will just evaporate, and we'll have the glorious free competition that we could just go backwards to the industrial age of capitalism, which we cannot do, right? The only way we can defeat the big monopolies, the only way the big monopolies can be defeated is with a government that fights for the bulk of the American people. American working families must enter a strategic alliance with the small business owners, with the lower level capitalists, with everyone throughout the society. We must build a block of resistance, an anti-monopoly coalition that wants peace with Russia and China and Iran, that wants economic growth and development, that wants to stop the attacks on our civil liberties and the emerging low-wage police state, and wants to restructure our economy so that growth and development and human creativity can flourish. And this is what you need to understand if you want to understand the situation in our country right now. This is what you need to understand, right? And I am done with labels, right? I am a Christian. I believe in God, and I would have given up a long time ago in my fight against imperialism if I did not believe in God. I am certainly not a woke leftist, but I am certainly an anti-imperialist. I'm certainly an admirer of the anti-colonial and anti-imperialist revolutions that have taken place around the world. I'm certainly an advocate of popular power and rational planning of the economy. I am a believer in human beings and our ability to overcome our weaknesses and advance and be creative and reinvent our relationship with nature in order to get to a higher plane. So what am I? What am I? Well, I call myself an innovationist. I am an innovationist. I am an advocate of human progress, a celebrator of human innovation, and I am a patriot who loves his country, and I am someone who believes in popular power and rejects imperialism. I am an anti-imperialist. I am opposed to the big monopolies and their satanic vision of degrowth and impoverishment and their pessimistic, scarcity-based mindset that says somehow the pie is only this big, and the only way your share can get any bigger is if you cut into someone else's slice, and that we should just be battling it out, men versus women, black versus white, your red state versus blue state. We should all be battling it out against the other people and who's got it too good and race to the bottom. And I don't want to get involved in that. I want you to be inspired, and I want you to find the creative power within your own soul. I want you to go build something beautiful. I want you to take the world around you and transform it into something beautiful. That's what I would like for you to do. That's what I believe. And that is the context in which I look at the speeches that we just heard from Tulsi Gabbard, from RFK, from Dr. Phil, right? From Trump himself, right? That is the context with which we can interpret those speeches, right? This was huge. And the fact that this rally happened in New York City and that this rally was packed, they tried to make it sound like people were going to be afraid to turn out. People were going to be too scared to turn out. There was going to be a low turnout. Well, it was packed. That auditorium was packed to the brim. There were crowds of people outside watching it on big screens. We were there in the early afternoon as people were lined up to go in. And we were there in the early afternoon, and people were lined up. The rally itself didn't even start until 5 o'clock, right? And that auditorium, the Madison Square Garden Auditorium, holds 19,500 people. And it was packed. Donald Trump is going to win this election, folks. Now, there's issues there. Trump murdered Qasem Soleimani and was vicious to Iran, brought us to the brink of World War III with Iran. Trump panders very hard to Israel, that is bombing and killing the Palestinians right now. And that there's plenty that we can be concerned about. And that when Trump wins, it's going to be just the beginning, because at that point, our work will be cut out for us. But it will be a new day, because Kamala Harris represents the worst elements within the deep state. She is the Hillary Clinton State Department. Hillary Clinton wanted to run for president again in 2020, and her supporters had a meeting in Long Island, and they said, no, Hillary Clinton can't run again. And they put their money behind Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, she sees herself as a victim. She is estranged from her father, who's a Marxist economist who lives in Jamaica. She's estranged from him. The two of them don't speak. He denounced her campaign in 2020. And she very much feels that she is a victim, and she wants the whole world to know that little girl was me. She feels the world has been unfair to her, and that gives her license to destroy other people's lives. When she was the prosecutor in California, in the Bay Area, and then as the state attorney general, she presided over scandals that would make your hair stand on end. There were drug labs that were turning over false positive results, and she concealed that Over 1,000 people ultimately had their sentences overturned because when she was the top cop in Cali, she made a point of covering up that the drug labs were turning over false positive results. Absolutely outrageous. Kevin Cooper was hours away from getting the death penalty in the state of California. And his lawyers came forward and said, maybe we ought to get DNA evidence to make sure he's actually guilty of the crime. And Kamala stepped in and said, oh, no, we don't want DNA evidence. No, we can't have that. And she tried to kill an innocent man. She was overruled. The execution was stopped. And now she says she feels really bad about it. Oh, she just feels so bad about it. Bullshit. She doesn't feel bad about it at all. Kamala Harris implemented a policy of locking up parents if their kids miss school. There was a single mom who was raising a disabled child who ended up in handcuffs, taken to the police station and booked in handcuffs because her child was in the hospital with serious medical issues and didn't go to school. And so Kamala had this mother put in handcuffs. Kamala is demonic, right? This is a person who does not care about other people. She will harm other people and laugh about it. And her staff, the people who've worked in the vice presidential office, have talked about the toxic atmosphere in the staff and in the office, the bully tone that she took with people, how she denigrated and tore down her own staff. This is a satanic woman. This is a woman who can't answer basic questions. This is a woman who doesn't really have any true beliefs other than wanting to be at the center of attention and wanting to be special in her own mind. She cannot be president, and she is bought and paid for by the worst parts of the war lobby. She is bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton State Department. She is tied in with New America, Anne-Marie Slaughter, some of the most pro-interventionists. She promises to keep spending billions and billions of American taxpayer dollars to prolong the war in Ukraine. She's married to an AIPAC activist, a Zionist activist. As bad as Trump might be, as much as Trump has said and done a lot of things we don't like, Trump, his victory will represent a repudiation of the hell that we have been living in the last 4 years. In this country where you have to pay $200 every time you walk outside, where we can't afford anything, where our young people want to kill themselves or mutilate their genitals and their minds are fried on social media, where everyone's canceling and tearing down everyone else, where there's opioids in every neighborhood and dead bodies found along the side of the road from the addiction epidemic that's plaguing our country, from the rising crime rates, from the impoverishment that we're facing, from bridges collapsing and power plants exploding. What we are dealing with in this country right now is intolerable, and there's millions of Americans who say we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to take it anymore. And they don't know at this point that the problem is rooted in the irrationality of the capitalist system. And they also do not know at this point that we live under imperialism, etc. And Donald Trump has his 4 years in office. He did many things I disagreed with. But this is a journey that we are on together. And the first step in this journey is repudiating Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris wins, that will be a victory for the forces of evil. And if Donald Trump wins, it will be, at least in terms of public perception, a pushback against everything we've endured for the last 4 years. Now, look, there's many people that have said to me and tweeted at me, Caleb, how do you know? Trump's not going to do that. Trump's more pro-Israel. I'm telling you, even if Donald Trump doesn't fulfill any of his promises, even if Donald Trump gets in and is worse than Kamala Harris, I'm dead serious about this, it's still better that he win the election, because that will show where the American people stand. That'll show what the American people want to hear. Look, I know about Woodrow Wilson and how he campaigned on he kept us out of war and then marched us into World War I. I know about Lyndon Johnson, who campaigned saying he would de-escalate the Vietnam War, and after he won, he got us into it. I know about George W. Bush, who said he didn't believe in regime change wars, etc., and then after 9/11, he invaded Iraq, and that's true. And I don't doubt for a minute that it's very possible that Donald Trump could get in there and do the opposite of everything he says. And that would be awful if it happened, but it would still be better that he won because it would show where the American people stand. It would be a public repudiation of the horror we've been living in, the hell we've been enduring for the last 4 years. And that in and of itself, a public repudiation of the low-wage police state and the imperialist monopolies and their march toward world war, that alone would be valuable. And it will be important after Trump wins that we make clear that that's what happened. And we say, no, this isn't the American people voting because they hate immigrants. No, this isn't the American people voting because they support Israel. This is the American people repudiating their satanic low-wage police state and their degrowth agenda and their impoverishment. This was the American people voting for RFK. This was the American people voting for Tulsi Gabbard. This was the American people voting against Dick Cheney and everything that Dick Cheney stands for. This was the American people voting against everything we've been living under. And even if we don't get a change in it, at least the public will have made clear where they stand. I got to tell you, when I listened to Dr. Phil's speech today, we might show it on here later tonight if we have a chance. Dr. Phil's speech, where he talked about bullying and cancel culture and how Americans are being made afraid to say what they think, and how people's lives are destroyed just because they want to vote for Donald Trump. And it was really, really powerful stuff, right? Dr. Phil, I know he's an Israel supporter. And again, you got to listen to what people say, right? Stop with the identity. Well, that's a bad person, Caleb. No, it's a person who disagrees with you, who's wrong on some issues. But why is he saying that? Why was Dr. Phil on the stage tonight? Dr. Phil was on the stage tonight. Why was he on the stage talking that way? Because millions of Americans agree with him. Everyone is tired of the bullshit. People are tired of being afraid they might lose their job for a tweet. That's what they're afraid of. People are tired of being told to be pessimistic, being told to be afraid of their neighbor. People are tired of being able to not say what is right in front of their eyes about how insane this trans stuff has gotten. It's one thing if someone, feels they need to change their gender and wants to make a decision, that's one thing, but it's gotten nuts, and everyone can see that it's gotten nuts. It's gotten nuts, and it's gotten very, very nuts. Everyone can see that. And you're not allowed to say that, though. You could lose your job if you say that. You could have your reputation destroyed if you say that. Well, I think a lot of people want to be able to say that. I think a lot of people want to be able to say Russia's not our enemy and not be destroyed for saying that as well. I think a lot of people want to be able to say, I believe in God. A lot of people want to be able to say Jesus is Lord and Savior. A lot of people want to be able to say that without being made fun of or being told that they're stupid or being told that they're an idiot or being told that they're not allowed to express who they truly are, that they should be ashamed of it. A lot of Americans just don't like what Silicon Valley has been dishing out onto us for the last 4 years. And Dr. Phil was up there talking on the stage because he was appealing to millions and millions of Americans and how they truly feel in their bones. That's what Dr. Phil was saying. And that's what Tulsi Gabbard was appealing to. And that's what RFK was appealing to, right? And that public health, the death rate. If you look at this, people are dying young and vaccines. And, there's a lot that we're just not allowed to say. Our tech overlords have told us we're just not allowed to talk about this. You're not allowed to say this. Well, Dr. Phil, he was up there saying, look, I know what bullying is. I know what cancel culture is. I don't like it. Well, there you go. Thank you, Dr. Phil. And if millions of Americans didn't agree with him, it wouldn't be the case. Look, if you're watching this and you're hearing what I'm saying, maybe you don't necessarily agree with all the facts. Maybe this is new for you for the first time. But if you are hearing me right now and nodding in approval with anything I've said, I've got news for you. You are in the majority. The majority of Americans feel the same way that you feel. And everybody knows it. And they've got us all isolated from each other and looking at our phones, and they're mesmerizing us with social media because they don't want us to see what we have in common. We are all getting screwed. We are all getting screwed by what these international bankers and their war lobby and their low-wage police state and their deep state is doing to us. We are all getting screwed. We are all tired of it. We're tired of a dollar not buying us anything anymore. We're tired of being afraid what's going to happen to the next generation. We're tired of being scared to go outside because we're going to get robbed. We're tired of the health effects. We are tired of the crumbling roads. We are tired of the censorship and the cancel culture and the police state and the surveillance. We are tired of it. We are tired of it. And you're not alone in being tired of it. You are not alone in being tired of it. We are all tired of it together. We, the silent majority of Americans, we don't want to live in their police state. We don't want to live in World War III, and we don't want to watch our country continue to crumble and fall to shreds. We are the majority in this country. We are the majority. And if you're agreeing with what I'm saying here, you are the majority. The majority doesn't know why. The majority doesn't understand exactly why it's happening. They don't know what imperialism is. They don't know about the irrationality of capitalism. They don't know that we need the banks and the factories and the industries to be organized to serve public good and not the profits of a wealthy few. They don't know that we need a government of action to fight for working families. They don't know about innovationism and the great breakthroughs that our organization has done, but they know in their bones that we are right, and that we represent the global majority, and that there is a new world rising at this time that isn't being held back by the insanity that we are witnessing in the decaying imperialist system of the West. And that the time for us to realize that we have so much more in common than we have differences, that even across the ideological, the religious, the cultural camp, we have so much more in common. That time is here. And that's why, I want to say one of the best things about this is that Donald Trump had this rally in real life. He didn't have an online rally. He had a rally in real life to show how widespread support for him, for RFK, for Tulsi Gabbard, for Dr. Phil, for their repudiation of this nightmare, to show how mass and popular these sentiments really are. Folks, what happened tonight, this is going to be remembered in history like when Roosevelt spoke at Madison Square Garden in 1936. When Roosevelt spoke in Madison Square Garden, and Roosevelt was speaking, and he said, "Never before in history have they been so united against a single candidate, and I welcome their hatred." That was an epic moment because Roosevelt spoke for the American majority that was suffering during the Great Depression, that needed jobs, needed schools, needed education, needed economic relief. And he spoke for the majority against his own class. And Donald Trump, at this point, hey, go and read a pamphlet called 18th Brumaire by Karl Marx, where he talks about how history is very, very weird that way. History is very, very, very weird. And that sometimes the most bizarre people, a reality TV star, a guy with weird hair who is a real estate owner in New York City, he ends up sitting at the center of a movement that is expressing the sentiments of the overwhelming majority against the agenda of the ultra rich. And Donald Trump, I mean, I don't know. I've never met him. I have. I had an exchange with him, but I've never sat down with him and had coffee. I've never had dinner with him. I've been in his presence a couple times, but I've never, gotten to be intimate or friendly with him. I don't know if he's a good guy or not. That's hardly even relevant. right? It's not about personalities. It is about the balance of forces. And Donald Trump right now has positioned himself as being aligned with the bulk of the American population against the dangerous direction that imperialism is moving in. And he is positioning himself to be the voice of popular repudiation of the way imperialism is headed. And like I said, even if he gets in and doesn't do a single good thing, even if he gets in and doesn't do anything different than what Kamala would have done, if he wins the election, that'll be the world being put on notice that millions of Americans are tired of this. And let me also say this, that when Trump wins, that is just the beginning of the work, because we're going to have to be out there with this banner 10 times as much when he wins to say, this is what we voted for. And we are going to have to be louder than ever. And we are going to have to push back against all the bad things in the Trump movement. And we are going to have to be putting forward proposals. And we're going to have to be nuanced and careful in how we phrase things. But we are going to have to find a way to push forward and build the anti-monopoly coalition in America and march this country out of imperialism and march this country away from the low-wage police state and fight for a government of action that fights for working families, because that is what we urgently need in this country at this time. And I am telling you that we are living in very, very crazy times, and nothing seems to make sense. And I understand that this is been a rough time for me. I got to tell you, I've spent the majority of my life as a communist, as a leftist, and I am dead set against the left. I have spent the majority of my life adhering to leftist and Marxist ideology, and I'm seeing that the values that I hold dear, like opposing war, like fighting for working families, like believing in growth, like being optimistic, those values have been completely repudiated by the movement and the organizations that I once believed in, right? If you look at any communist group, they do not believe in optimism. They do not believe in growth. They certainly aren't anti-war. I mean, and I am, I wouldn't say I'm politically homeless, but we're blazing trail. We're innovators. We are political innovationists, right? We are blazing new trail, and we are sticking with what we know to be true. And I've seen the new economy. I've been to the Yalta Economic Forum. I was at the World Youth Festival. I got to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin and in March at the World Youth Festival, along with my good comrade Noah in Boston. Both of us got to speak directly to Russian President Putin at a public youth forum. I have seen the new economy. I've been to Nicaragua. I have been to Iran. I have seen what is happening. I've been to the African continent. I know where the future is, and I know that I love my country enough to say that we got to get on the train of the new economy, and we've got to reject the satanic decaying order of imperialism. We've got to join this new economy. And if you want to call that communism, you can. Most of the communists don't think that's what it is. And if you want to call that fascism or libertarianism or shabibbity bobbity boobity boop or whatever you want to call it, I don't care what you call yourself. There are Christians who agree with me. There are Christians who vehemently disagree with everything I'm saying here tonight. There are Muslims who agree with everything that I'm saying here. And there's Muslims who vehemently disagree with me. There are atheists who agree with me. That I don't care what you call yourself. I care about what side are you on. What side are you on? Are you with the low-wage police state, or are you against it? Are you with the BRICS, or are you against it? Are you with the vaccine mandates and the lockdowns and the cancel culture and the smearing, or are you against it? Are you with hating Russia and waving the Ukrainian flag and dumping our American future into the hands of Nazis in Ukraine, or are you against it? Are you with the emerging low-wage police state, or are you against it? I am an innovationist. The ideology that I believe in is an ideology that we are gradually developing, put forward in our our textbook, We Are City Builders, and we are piecing things together. And I spent my life studying communism, but I'm learning about different movements and different ideologies. I'm drawing from the Christian faith of my roots, and I'm understanding the perspective of Wallace Wattles and New Thought, and that perspective that emphasizes growth and innovation and creativity. I've studied the work of the Schiller Institute and Lyndon LaRouche, and we are figuring this out. We are pioneers, right? If there was one of these old answers from the past that was going to solve everything, somebody would have discovered it right now and used it. We've got to innovate. We're blazing new trail. We're going in a new direction. We are innovating because that is the urgency of the hour. So that is where I'm at, and that is what I take from the situation that we are in. If you want to understand why we are in the situation that we are in, this is why. And I continue to struggle each day amid all the hardships that I've faced, amid all of the disappointment that I've seen and all the setbacks. The reason that I keep going is because I struggle with myself to remain optimistic, and I struggle with myself to do what I understand to be right, and I struggle with myself to be good to my friends and maintain the relationships with the people that I have worked with and the people who appreciate what we're doing here. I struggle to see the good in people, to see the strengths of people. That's what I am struggling to do. And I hope that you will be part of our movement. I hope that you'll join the Center for Political Innovation. Right now, we exist informally. We have meetings every Saturday, but we're going to reopen the membership after this election. We are going to have a membership drive after this election, and Black never happened. Weird. That has never happened, but it kicked me out of StreamYard. Here I am. We are going to reopen the membership, and we are aiming toward a very, very big convention that we're going to have next July, a big anti-imperialist rally in the heartland of the country in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, a lot is happening. A lot is happening. And I am really glad, and I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart for all of you. I really am grateful for every person that I've met on this journey. And I'm really excited for what we are going to accomplish, and how the victory of Donald Trump and the repudiation of Kamala Harris, the woman that I wrote a book about 4 years ago because I knew how dangerous she was, about how Kamala Harris gets repudiated and defeated. That'll be a step forward, and our work will have just begun, because we are going to be part of an effort to just rescue our whole country from the nightmare that is emerging, and build the new world. There's a new world to come in. There's a new world on the horizon. We are going to be part of it. And I am so, so grateful for all of you and all the hard work that you all have done to help us get through so many difficult times. On a busy street in a busy town, I saw them tearing a building down. With a ho heave ho and a lusty yell, the men swung a beam, and a side wall fell. And I said to the foreman, "Are these men skilled like those you would hire if you wanted to build?" And the foreman just smiled and said, "No, indeed. Unskilled labor is all that I need, for I can easily wreck in a week or two that which took builders years to do." So I thought to myself as I walked away, which of these roles have I tried to play? Am I a builder who builds with care, measuring life with a compass and square? Am I living my life by a well-made plan and striving to do the best that I can? Or am I that type who scours the town, content with the labor of tearing things down? We are really lucky to be alive right now, folks. We are really lucky to be alive. We are living in an era of great change on so many levels. And if you look at artificial intelligence and how humanity is is making dramatic strides. And if you look at this new economy that's emerging in the world, and you look at how we're heading toward a crisis in this country where we're going to have to break out of imperialism, and we're going to rebuild this country. I mean, it's going to be a situation where we have no choice. We have to just reinvent our country, and we have to break out of imperialism. We have to build a new America for working families. We're going to get over that big hurdle of breaking out of imperialism and rebuilding as a new society. We are so lucky. We are so lucky to be living in this time, and we should be very, very grateful that we were chosen to be alive in an era like this. So on that note, folks, names and locations. Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. Fakio from Montreal. Welcome. St. Joseph from Missouri, the Fingerman. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Bob in Troy, New York. Marcos in Venezuela. Courtney in Virginia. Jacob in Wisconsin. Cyrus in Cornwall. Mr. Wonderful in Qantas. The south of the USA. Alex in Brazil. Work in progress out in Ottawa. KP from Tennessee. Balthazar in Oakland. Dan Niswander from Los Angeles area. CPI Innovationists. Let's have a LA meetup soon. Carolina from Berlin. Anthony from Detroit. San Diego. St. David's, Bermuda. Gavin in Illinois. Lincoln from Adelaide, Australia. Joe in New Jersey. Jack and Pierce. Moonlight Beach, California. Twilly Willy Wit. Boom, boom. Anybody else? Names and locations. Patrick in Maine. Rachel Winder in Georgia. Hope you had a lovely, lovely weekend and happy birthday. George Munoz in Sydney. Walking the Globe, the Russian Bear. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Names and locations. Names and locations. Twilly Willy Wit. Boom, boom. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Anybody else? Names and locations. George Muniz in Sydney. Scott S. in Moonlight Beach, California. Denver, Colorado. Carmen in Reading, Pennsylvania. Carlos Marks. All right. Miguel in Florida. Welcome, Miguel. Chris out in Kew Gardens, Queens. That's not too far from here. You're a fellow New Yorker. Tijuana, Mexico. Mundo Cat. There you go. There you go. All right. Anybody else? Names and locations. Chris out in Salt Lake City. Briggy in Pennsylvania. Miss Mewit in Oregon. Welcome, Miss Mewit. Chris in Salt Lake City. Very, very good. Ryan in Kansas City. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good times, good times. Very, very good. Very, very, very good. Very good. All right, folks. Now we have 2 Rumble rants that have come in, and we have 4. Oh, hold up. Brooklyn in the house. Mission accomplished. Phil was out with us on the street today, and he did great work. And I tell you, I am so grateful to everyone who helped me today. Wow, I didn't know last night. I was calling every contact, and I was panicking. Are we actually going to be able to do this? Are we going to miss this huge opportunity? Trump's at Madison Square Garden. We got to get the banner there. And we figured it out. Thanks to Phil's hard work, and thanks to other people who stepped up to the plate. And I got to tell you, lugging that banner from 42nd Street down to Madison Square Gardens was not easy. I got to tell you that much. And but people stepped up to the plate and they helped us, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I'm absolutely, absolutely grateful that we were able to do what we did. And I'm just really glad we were able to do what we did. So I'm going to put on the video from today so you all just can see. If you haven't seen, yes, it's basically a big sale. We ought to put some little tiny holes in that banner. I think that would make our lives easier. I just don't want to ruin it, but we could put some holes in for the wind to go through. But anyway, I'm going to put on the video from today. And, you know, folks, if you want to support the work that we're doing, we have a GoFundMe for the Peace MAGA campaign, right? And, you know, it's getting down to crunch time. But it's not easy to do what we do. And we could use your support for the Peace MAGA campaign. So if you are able to send a small $5, $10 or something to the Peace MAGA campaign, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. You know, offset some of the costs of lugging everything from the storage locker and printing big banners and all of that. If you could contribute, that would be great. I'm going to put on the video and then I'll start answering people's questions. So support the Peace MAGA campaign. You can support us. That's a great way to support us. And I'm going to put on the video from today. It's only 6 minutes. I made a point of editing quite a bit, you know, and we edited. I'm getting better at editing these videos. You know, I'm not as good as Peter Coffin is at editing these videos by far. But I'm getting better at video editing. And it also helped that there was a band playing next to us. And so that created some background music, and they were playing patriotic music and stuff. That was really convenient. There were two guys dressed in like, you know, Revolutionary War outfits. There was a bass and a drum set and an electric guitar, and they were playing, you know, all afternoon, and that created some good background music for us. So I'm just going to put the music on. I'm just going to put the video on, and then I'll start answering people's questions. So here we go. So we're here on 34th Street, and the crowds have lined up. They're going in to see Trump speak. We've got our banner. We're handing out our palm cards, spreading the message.
Like a concert, but bigger. I see the lines of people going block after block after block after block, and it makes you wonder, is the media, the mainstream media, really telling you the truth about how unpopular Donald Trump actually is?
This administration is evil, and we need to bring America back and make America godly again. Make America great again.
Only peace can make America great again. Only peace can make America great again. This was a great moment when Trump talked to Kim Jong-un and started the process of peace on the Korean Peninsula. And we want to see peace not just with North Korea, but with Russia, with China, with many countries around the world. It is outrageous that billions of dollars is being spent on prolonging the war in Ukraine when our people can't get relief in North Carolina. People are left behind in Georgia and North Carolina. They can't get the relief they need. This is outrageous. Our government is more concerned with waging wars around the world than for caring for our own people. And we need a president who will put America first, a president who will bring peace around the world. Only peace can make America great again. Yeah, you think Trump could be a peace president?
I think he can, as long as he surrounds himself with people who have peace in mind. My concern, I'm a voter, I'm concerned about everything. He's surrounding himself with a lot of people from big tech, and big tech has pretty much been now part of the military-industrial complex, so that's slightly concerning, but I think if Trump surrounds himself with good people, I think so.
I appreciate Trump and all his efforts.
You like the banner, huh?
I do.
Yeah, are you worried about war, the danger of war?
I am, and I know I'm confident that Trump can put an end to it.
They're marching us toward World War III, and they're taking our freedoms away. While they do it, we have got to stand up. Kamala Harris represents the most vile factions of the deep state, the regime change apparatus. Yeah, what do you think about how Kamala Harris, I mean, it seems like she's locking up her political opponents, trying to put people in jail, trying to put Trump in jail so she can win the election?
They'll do anything to stay in power.
You're a Kennedy fan, I can see, huh?
I am, yes.
Yeah, he's bold, sticking up about the vaccines and all of that. Telling
He is, but I think it's important. When you have a lot of mainstream publications who refuse to report on a lot of the stories that people have, I think it only adds more validity to what Kennedy's been saying about big pharma, big ag.
This is a man of peace. This is a man that can do it. This is a man that can make things happen. Everybody's saying war. This man is for peace.
He's for unity. He's for the black. He's for the white. He's for everybody. This is the man I like. Yeah. Don't worry about what the fake media say. 100% the right man for the job.
We want peace between all different races and nationalities in the world. This is how they are. I'm here advocating peace and he's calling me a Nazi. Didn't the Nazis start a big war? Didn't the Nazis take people's freedom away? This is how they are. This is exactly how they are. You're a Nazi if you want peace. This is how sick they are. You're standing here saying you want peace and he's calling us Nazis for wanting peace. I'm standing here for peace and they call you a Nazi. This is how sick the woke left is. It's Nazism to want peace. I'm a patriot. I love my country, and loving your country means you don't want a war. I am a patriot. I love America, and I don't want World War III. Only peace can make America great again. Trump wants to negotiate. He wants to trade with countries around the world rather than bombing them. He wants to end these insane sanctions that are weakening the dollar around the world. And he wants to open up trade and friendship. Peace starts with trade and doing business.
Obama couldn't do it. Bush couldn't do it. He did it. For that reason, I'm giving my vote for him. I'm from New York City here. I'm voting for him.
About yourself, you and I go back to Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, we go back to Occupy Wall Street. I started off with the Jersey City Peace Movement. We're all about saying no to wars. And that's why I've come out to stand here with this sign, because World War III is a bad thing to get ourselves involved with. And seeing who Kamala Harris these days is surrounding herself with, the likes of Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and these neocon warmongers that just won't leave us alone.
What do you think? Sorry. What do you think?
Excellent. Excellent.
That was a great moment when he met with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, he has the respect of people around the world, unlike Kamala.
Absolutely.
No one has any respect for.
I say America first, not Ukraine first. I say America first, not Israel first. Only peace can make America great again. Only peace can make America great again. This is the... No problem. How are people liking it? Good? He's a deal maker, and this should just be the beginning. I can't wait until Donald Trump shakes hands with Putin. I can't wait until Donald Trump shakes hands with Xi Jinping. I can't wait until Donald Trump shakes hands with the Iranians and with the Cubans all around the world. Only peace can make America great again. And it's time that we do business. There's a whole new economy in the world. If you look at the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, all these countries are rising up from poverty and building new railways and all that. We should trade with them. We should get some of that money for America. America shouldn't be trying to lock the world out. Our dollar is losing value because of this silly policy.
All right. So that was us today. If you can shoot us a couple bucks on the GoFundMe for the Peace MAGA campaign, that would make my life a little bit easier and make these times where everything's not clear with my job is up in the air and everything, and we're just trying to get through this election nightmare. That would make things much easier for me. So, you know, on that note, though, it is now the second half of our show where I answer people's questions. So first we'll do the Rumble rants, which I can't put on the screen. And then after that, I'll do the roll call, or I'll do the super chats, which I can put on the screen. That's how it works. So the Rumble rants, both are from Hemp Car. And he says, why is there fluorescent nanoparticles in Coca-Cola? I'm Googling that. Fluorescent nanoparticles in Coca-Cola. Oh, it's apparently a widely searched thing. Fluorescent nanoparticles present in Coca-Cola and Pepsi, respectively. Okay. What are nanoparticles? Right? I'm going to ask, what are fluorescent nanoparticles? Fluorescent nanoparticles are nanostructures that absorb and emit light in a distinctive way. All right, man, you lost me on that one. You lost me on that one. I don't even know what I mean, there's stuff in Coca-Cola that reflects light in a certain way or something. I believe it. Look, I don't smoke cigarettes, and I wonder sometimes if drinking Diet Coke is just as bad as smoking cigarettes, if not worse. It is my addiction. I am definitely hooked on Diet Coke, and who knows? Maybe one of these days I will stop drinking it. We shall see. We shall see. I'm not there yet. Now, the UN says cancer is going up 77% by 2050. Cancer rates set to rise 77% by 2050. This is a official UN article. There are predicted to be more than 35 million cancer cases during 2050, up from 20 million in 2022, according to the International Health Agency. The increase reflects both population aging and growth, as well as changes to people's exposure to risk factors. Tobacco, alcohol, and obesity are key factors, along with air pollution. Now, this is an official UN article that Hempcar sent in. I believe it. Yeah, with the population going up and with exposure and obesity and all of that. Yeah, I think, I don't think this article is putting forward anything that's particularly outrageous. I'll drop it in the chat for those who haven't seen it. And it is an official UN article, and I believe it. RFK has done a lot to talk about public health and how the corporations don't serve us good, healthy food, obviously. And nothing shocking there. I mean, look, I mean, we're living in crazy times. We're living in crazy times, I must say. Nothing is normal right now, and I very much do believe that, that there's all kinds of preservatives and unhealthy chemicals in our food, and that vaccine, I mean, I'm vaccinated. I didn't die, right? I got my first one. That was just nothing. My second one, I felt like I was going to die, and I was vomiting. I was just vomiting. I mean, I had never felt so much mucus in my throat, and I was just vomiting over and over. And now, I mean, the amount of people that are young that I know who have died, like, I mean, it's not like, I mean, people that are not, elderly that I know who have died, or like in my circles that have died recently, the number has significantly increased. People who've had heart attacks and stuff like that. And that is certainly alarming. People didn't die at the rate that they currently are. And so I've got questions there. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I can say there. So Deborah has been a member of our community for a long time, a very great person. I met Deborah out in California, and thank you, Deborah. And I will keep up the good fight, never surrender, and stay strong. We got to just knuckle through it. I can't wait until this election is over. And like I said, our work will just be beginning when this election is over, but we won't be, I feel in a lot of ways, almost politically constipated by this election. Because there's so much that I want to do that I can't do until we get through this election, right? There's so much that needs to be done in order, in order to, in order to get through this, and I am just waiting for this election to be over. But I'm making my contribution, and that's part of the art of doing this kind of politics, is always looking for a way to make a contribution, always finding out based on the situation how we can make a contribution to get through this. Garland, hey man, it was an honor to go on your show. And I went on your show all the time, and I will continue going on your YouTube channel, and you're a great one. You're a great one. And I've learned a lot from you. Yeah, I'm glad I could connect you and Jyoti. Jyoti is amazing, and so are you. And hey man, you meet real ones in this business. You meet people that are solid. You are solid, Garland. It's an honor to know you. And, I didn't even have to invite you. We're having a convention in July, and I just mentioned that July 12th, 2025 is going to be the CPI National Convention. I just mentioned it. And you were like, I'm going. Well, definitely. We are honored. You will be a keynote speaker at our convention. I'm glad you're stepping up. We didn't even have to ask you to come. You already volunteered. So you're awesome, Garland. Stay strong, brother. All right. Crazy election cycle. I hope everyone is staying sane. Yeah, again, I cannot wait for this election to be over. I cannot wait for it to be over. It is a bonkers election. And look, at this point, if Trump doesn't win, I mean, it will have so obviously been rigged. He's going to win. Muslims are voting for Trump, right? Do I have to show the video again? Muslims are going to turn out and vote for Trump. I mean, this is going to be Trump's year. And there you go. Yeah, I just, and thank you, Gala, for being such a solid person and such a solid supporter and member of our community. You do great work. And yeah, there's so many great people in our community that are solid, right? There's, you have the people who waver and they get upset about something or whatever, but then there's solid people out there, and solid people are gold, right? I love solid people. And I'm seeing those solid people in the chat. Have you seen the movie Network? I have seen it. That's the line. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. It comes from that movie. So here's the story about the movie Network. So I went to a conference in Detroit when I was living the summer of 2008. I lived in Detroit. It was, I was working for a campaign to stop home foreclosures, and I was like a full-time volunteer for the political group I was in. That summer I was in Detroit. So I went to any political event in Detroit and would try to sell communist newspapers and try to promote, our agenda. I was on staff, basically. I was sleeping on people's couches and going around volunteering, doing outreach and stuff for the political group I was in. So when I was in Detroit, there was a conference on like independent media that happened at Wayne State University in Detroit. So I went to it, and at that conference, they showed a bunch of clips from the movie Network, which I had never seen before. And so I thought that was interesting, and I had never seen the movie. So then, actually, it was just, 3 or 4 years ago, I actually watched the movie Network. I was expecting the movie Network to be a lot more left-wing than it was. But actually, the movie Network, if you watch it, it's not a leftist film, really. It's more of a nationalist. It's a little more Trumpian, right? Trump is the better candidate in this election, but it's a little more in line with that kind of Trump worldview, that kind of, nationalist, populist worldview. And I was expecting a leftist film. It's not a leftist film, but it says a lot about the Reagan Revolution. And it says a lot about the oil, the crisis of the late 70s, 78, 79. If you watch the movie, for example, the movie is basically about, it's about how media has become corrupt and for profit and not really working in the interests of the people. That's kind of the message of the film. But it's also kind of about how people are lost and looking for truth and looking for someone to follow. And it's also about the confusion of the time, that they were in, the kind of the pessimism, right? So I believe the film, it came out during the time of the OPEC boycott, when there was an energy crisis in the United States, with the price of gasoline was very, very high. And like the plot of the film is that there's like a news reporter who, he's like a late night TV news host. And he announces that, they basically tell him he's fired. And so he's quite upset about that. So he goes off script on the air and he says, tomorrow night, I'm going to shoot myself live on TV. Of course they think they're just not going to let him back on the air. He just had a psychological meltdown or something. But then they realize that, people are tuning in by the millions to watch him kill himself. They're expecting he's going to kill himself. They want to see him kill himself. It's like this sick thing. And he doesn't kill himself. And instead he just kind of becomes this like, guru that's like preaching at people, and people really like this guy who threatened to kill himself. And then from there, the guy becomes quite popular because he has this show where he's preaching at people in this kind of populist way. He says, I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore. And then like the big thing is he gets them the population to oppose, Arabs, an Arab company buying something, right? It's kind of a populist thing. This foreign company is buying something. But then they also realize that there's a terrorist group, and there's like a character who's like supposed to be Angela Davis, very clearly, like a black woman with an afro who's supposed to be the Communist Party USA leader. And they want her to create what's essentially a reality TV show with a group of terrorists who kidnap people. And what I thought, as somebody whose background is in communism, what I thought was particularly disturbing was, so they have this character who's supposed to be Angela Davis. She's got the big afro. And they say to her, we want to do a reality TV show with this group that's doing these kidnappings and assassinations. And she gives a speech against left adventurism. The American people are not ready for revolt. We advocate a peaceful transition, all of this. And then they say to her, oh, we're going to pay you $10 million. Then she says, okay, I'll call them. And it like hints, and this is something that I've noticed a lot of conservatives believed at the time, that all communists were like in cahoots together, right? So the terrorist group is supposed to be the Symbionese Liberation Army. It's supposed to be like a Weather Underground terrorist group. And the woman is supposed to be Angela Davis. And those two groups had nothing to do with each other, right? I mean, the Communist Party USA and the Weather Underground terrorists and the Trotsky, but there was this belief on right-wingers' belief that all like the communist groups secretly were in a big cabal together or something. And that's basically what the film is saying. And so the Angela Davis character becomes like the director of a TV show, which is this terrorist group that kidnaps people and stuff. And there's a camera crew following them around as they commit their crimes. And that's supposed to hint that mainstream media is no longer like patriotic. It's promoting communists. So again, this is more Trumpian. It's more Trumpian populist. It's not a left. I expected a leftist film. It was not a leftist film, right? The idea is supposed to be, well, the media is not caring for average Americans, is out of touch with what they want, and just wants to make money. But it's also like the media is promoting communism and is part of a conspiracy with the communists or something, which, that was what they were putting out. And, I guess I don't want to reveal the ending for you. I don't want to ruin the end for you, but it's a kind of an anti-corporate, populist, and semi-nationalist film from what year did it come out? Network, and it came out at the same time. It's from 1976. Oh, that's a little bit older than I thought. I thought it was a little bit later than that. But so 76. It's Carter era. Early Carter era. And you can kind of see the frustrations that a lot of Americans had. That eventually led to the Reagan Revolution, right? That, there was a lot of confusion about what was right and wrong, and a lot of frustration, and a lot of, and sensational television was really rising during those years, right? So the 80s when it really got going. But you said the beginnings of sensational TV, talk shows, things like that. And so, I don't know, it's interesting. It's about corporate media and stuff. And there's a lot of speeches in there. The guy who's going to shoot himself, who then becomes the great inspirational TV host, he says things like, what you see on TV, it's not real. There's a lot of like rants. Yeah. Church committee era. Exactly. When there's a lot of demoralization, right? People were it was in their face what the FBI and CIA had been doing. There was a lot of confusion. The Watergate scandal had just happened. And then suddenly the economy was starting to get worse because of the energy crisis and all of that. And, setting the stage for the Reagan Revolution, there was a lot of confusion. So that movie spoke to it. And, so there you go. All right. I have seen the movie Network, and I have kind of interesting analysis of it. I guess the main thing that comes across, if you watch the movie Network, or if you watch the movie Car Wash, or if you watch the movie Switchblade Sisters, or if you watch the movie, there's a couple other movies too. I can't remember. But these are movies from the mid 70s. These are not movies from the late 60s, right? People think of 1968, 1969 as being the height of political of communist leftist stuff. That was the height of the political turmoil, but it wasn't really inculcated in the culture. But mid 70s, movies from like 1975, 76, there were a lot of communists in America, and especially if you were in a major city. If you were in New York City, if you were in San Francisco, if you were in Chicago, you saw communists on a daily basis, right? If you rode the subway in the New York City, inevitably some communist was going to try and sell you a newspaper, right? And if you watch Network, I mean, communists are a big part of the film. The Angela Davis character, the terrorist group that has I think their TV show they give them is called the Mao Zedong Hour, after Mao Zedong. They're like Maoist communists, they're supposed to be. And, if you watch All in the Family, and if you watch All in the Family is a little older, that's, but if you watch these, if you watch films from this era, right, Switchblade Sisters, right, you'll see that because of the political crisis of the 60s, there was a layer of people who became communists and spent the 70s trying to figure out how to be a communist in America. And that's the new communist movement. If you read our textbook, chapter 3 of the CPI textbook, we talk about the new communist movement of the 70s, the Maoist communists of the 70s. And, the movie Car Wash, which is, it's an African-American film, themed film. It's, it's a group of black teenagers who work at a car wash together. But the car wash is owned by a white guy who's supposed to be kind of a rich, like middle-class white guy. And one day his teenage son, or his like college-age son, shows up with a t-shirt with Mao on it and the little red book and starts trying to lecture all the, young black people who work at the car wash about communism. And that was kind of showing that was, that was in that era, that was, kind of, that was kind of the thing. And, Network has the Angela Davis character, and Car Wash. And there's a movie called Switchblade Sisters, which is a movie about a female motorcycle gang, and it's just, it's from 1976, I think, right? Switchblade Sisters. And, it's like, it's these women, or 1975, these women that are in a motorcycle gang, and there's another motorcycle gang that's been harassing them. And so, they decide they're going to have to go get guns, I guess. And guns were not as widely available back then as they are now, I guess. Right. I mean, nowadays guns, but anyway, they have to go get some guns. So they go to the home of a group of black women who are in a motorcycle gang, but they're black, and they go and buy their guns from them. They're illegal guns, right? I guess they want to buy their guns off the record or whatever. So they go to the house of these black women that are in a motorcycle gang, and they go in, and the black woman's house is decorated with a big picture of Mao and a big picture of Stalin. And the black women are supposed to be Maoist communists, right? They're like female Black Panther motorcycle people, and they've got a big picture of Mao and Stalin in their house. And that's the movie Switchblade Sisters. And that's like a plot device. In order to get the guns for the big rumble with the rival biker gang, they have to go to the home of the black communists. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other movies from that time too that are kind of like that. And it just kind of shows that in the background, of of American politics during these years, you had communists. I mean, they were just kind of there. The Progressive Labor Party, the Communist Workers Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party. They were around. Another movie from that era is I think it's from 1979. Right? Or I think the Blues Brothers, right? If you watch Blues Brothers, it's 1980. Blues Brothers was filmed in Chicago, and there's a scene in Blues Brothers where it's not mentioned or anything. It's just in the background. There's a free Bob Avakian or Stop the Railroad of Bob Avakian poster, right? Because 1979, Bob Avakian was facing serious criminal charges because he had, he'd protested against Deng Xiaoping at the White House. And so if you watch the Blues Brothers movies, there's a scene where the Blues Brothers are like talking or something. And behind them, there's a big Free Bobavakian or Stop the Railroad of Bobavakian poster behind them, because all over Chicago in those years, the RCP would just hang posters everywhere, Stop the Railroad of Bobavakian. So it was just around, right? And it just happened to be in the background, and it's just some kind of urban thing. So yeah, no, the new communist movement of the 70s, like the 60s political upsurge was like a lot of people were getting very, very political. And the new communist movement of the 70s was a lot of these people had adopted the communist ideology, but then China was shifting its politics and aligning with the United States, and it was a very confusing time, and it had a very different vibe because it was kind of depressing. It was almost like these people had gotten very optimistic and they'd gotten involved. They'd gotten involved, and then things were getting very confusing very, very quickly. And I've talked about that on previous streams. The strategy of Brzezinski was have the communists fight each other. And that was a very effective strategy. And in 1978, you had the Kampuchea War, where China invaded Vietnam. First, Vietnam and Cambodia fought with each other, and then China invaded Vietnam, and the communists were fighting with each other. Then you had the Iraq-Iran War, where Iraq was led by the Ba'athist Arab socialists, and Iran was led by the Islamic revolutionaries. These are two anti-imperialist movements, and they fought each other for a decade. And it was, have the anti-imperialist countries and anti-imperialist forces fight each other, right? That was the strategy, and have the USA pump, aid and support into some of them, and then pump aid into others, and manipulate the various anti-imperialist and anti-colonial movements against each other, and have it not be clear who was getting U.S. support at what time, and just manipulate the various anti-imperialist movements. Sometimes use an anti-imperialist movement, an anti-imperialist trend, use it, pump it up, and then turn against it. And that's more the Brzezinski strategy of manipulation, right? At the beginning of the Cold War, it was very clear. It was the communists versus the capitalists, period. And that was a losing formula. And that's why the USA lost in Vietnam, because it was the status quo versus the opposition. And so the opposition won. And I think that's why Trump is going to win, right? Trump has been very smart. He didn't make it a clusterfuck. RFK is working for him. Tulsi Gabbard's working for him. Donald Trump has made it. You're either for what Kamala Harris is doing or you're against it. And that's why Trump is going to win, right? Trump is smart enough to not make his campaign too narrow, right? And that's why the communists were winning on the Korean Peninsula and in Vietnam and other places, because they were the opponents of the status quo. If people didn't like the status quo, well, the communists were the automatic default. Well, in the late Cold War, the 70s and 80s, the United States and Brzezinski and all of that made it very confusing. Okay, you don't like the way things are, but are you for this group or that group or this group or this group, or who's really working for they make it confusing, right? And that's the strategy. And if you read what William S. Lind wrote about fourth generation warfare, that's what the USA did in Iraq, right? When the USA was trying to fight the opposition in Iraq, that was, they manipulated these various non-state actors, right? These insurgent groups or whatever, they manipulated them against each other, right? They didn't want there to be a clear, united effort on the part of them. They wanted them to be at each other's throats. And that's what they do in alternative media circles. There's constantly a game of rivalries and rumors and, constantly an effort to manipulate people that are anti-imperialist and anti-establishment online against each other, and trying to manipulate our organizations against each other, trying to create rivalries. That's what, the deep state will boost some of us a little bit and then unboost, and it's a game the deep state plays, right? Is to, make us all suspicious of each other, etc. So, yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Kamala has the biggest celebrities and Trump has the B-listers. Yeah. And you know why that is? You know why? Because the biggest celebrities are the ones that are completely compromised, right? I mean, P. Diddy, I don't know what P. Diddy did, but he must have done something, because suddenly, they're revealing all of his shit. But the thing is, I have a feeling a lot of the biggest celebrities are the ones that are completely compromised, and and they will go along with Kamala. But if you look at what P. Diddy did, there's no way that P. Diddy, I mean, the whole Democratic, I mean, there's huge layers of the establishment I mean, did you hear what Maria Zakharova, the Russian foreign ministry spokeswoman, said about that? I mean, there's a huge amount of complicity with all the security cameras and all the security guard. There's all kinds of people who knew what P. Diddy was doing and let it go on because he was somebody that, that they trusted, and he was one of their people. Now, and if you look at, it's a lot of B-list, quote, B-list celebrities that are supporting Trump because they're not part of the club, right? Just like it's lower level capitalists supporting Trump, right? These are people that are high achieving, famous people in one way or another, but they're not allowed. That's what people don't like, is how fucking rigged everything is, how rigged it is. That's what people don't like, right? And that I mean, you can have nowadays Albert Einstein would never be able to become a famous physicist. Instead, they'd find some dumb rich high school kid who knew nothing about physics, and they'd give him a reality TV show about being a famous physicist, right? I mean, it's so fucking rigged nowadays that people, low level celebrities are ones who worked really, really hard and earned it. And the high level celebrities are just famous for being famous because they're controlled and they're stupid. Right. And so, I mean, as somebody, I'm in the entertainment world, I'll tell you, it is like that. And so, of course, and Trump is somebody who's at odds with the establishment. And so all the kinds of people that have faced it, I'm not surprised that Dr. Phil endorsed Trump. Not surprised at all. Right. I'm not surprised that, that what is it, Hollywood Hogan and the Hulk and all of that. I mean, this is the reality that we're living in, right? Is that the game is more and more rigged. And a lot of people that deserve to be more famous than they are can see that. And then, you got Taylor Swift, and it's like the deep state just decides Taylor Swift is going to be what she is. And it's just like, I mean, she has good songs. I mean, I'm not saying Taylor Swift isn't amazing, but there were all those conspiracy theories about how she was going to get proposed to at the Super Bowl and all of that. And that reflected the fact that a lot of people knew she was manufactured, right? She was very, very, very manufactured. So there you go. There you go. Reach towards the Native Americans in villages, educate them, conscious them through developed class consciousness, working with engineers and artists. Well, when I was in high school, I spent a couple weeks on a Native American reservation, and it was a very educational experience for me. Oh, I got a Rumble rant. Better check on that. Thanks, Penny. It was a very educational experience for me. But that said, I don't know how well a white organization would be received among Indigenous folks. The Indigenous community, I will say that a lot of woke leftists speak on behalf of Indigenous people, and they forget a lot of Indigenous people serve in the military. A lot of even Indigenous people are evangelical Christians. Now, there's a lot of Indigenous people who are still doing the traditional religion and reject the U.S. government. And there was the American Indian movement, or AIM, that was very popular in the 60s and 70s. And there is still a Native American activist current that is, anti-imperialist and such. So it's a complicated scene, right? And if you go to North Dakota, South Dakota, you go to, the Native American reservations, you have Native Americans, and they are of diverse political views. They're very impoverished. The poverty is very extreme among Native Americans. But I'm not opposed to working with Native Americans, but you have to remember that this is a group of people that have been, subjected to genocide and are living in conditions. And that, if some white dude shows up and is just like, join my movement, it's not exactly, that probably shouldn't be the priority, right? Rather there should be some kind of alliance with Indigenous organizations that do exist and all of that. But I'm not opposed to it. You just got to be careful with that kind of thing. I mean, I did spend some time out there, and that, the conditions on the reservations are not good. But there's also not that many Native Americans left. I mean, they ran the whole continent at one point, obviously, but there's not that many of them. And those who do live, I mean, they live kind of on the reservations, and they're isolated, and they suffer a lot, right? And I would be for reparations. And this is, people always ask me, what is my position on decolonization? If the Indigenous people as a group wanted to break from the United States and form their own country, I would support that. Right now, that is not the majority position among Native Americans. And so I don't feel that it is my right to go and tell them, oh, you have to separate. And that goes for the Black Belt and the Sun Belt also. You got to be careful with these things, right? If I were to go up to Native Americans or go up to Black people or to Latin people and say, oh, you should separate, that would not come across as that sounds like segregation. I'm saying you don't have a right to be part of the country, right? At one point in this country, there was a big movement of Black people that wanted a separate national territory called the Black Belt. If there was a movement to create a separate Black national territory, I would obviously support it. But I can't go around promoting that. And that's a really important thing. And that's something that a lot of people don't get. There's nuance to this, right? That ultimately self-determination is up to the oppressed. The oppressed have the right to decide integration or separation for themselves. And that is their position. You got to be careful with these things. I love Chairman O'Malley and the African People's Socialist Party, and I've learned a lot from them and their approach and how they push economic empowerment in the Black community. I'm looking forward to speaking at their rally this weekend in Washington, D.C. How does Iran-Contra relate to the current Israel-Gaza-Lebanon horror show? I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, the only thing that I guess you could say about it is that, so Iran had an anti-imperialist revolution in 1979, but then, as the Iraq-Iran war continued into the late 80s, Iran started pivoting toward aligning with the United States, and the USA started seeing Iraq as a bigger threat. And part of that, a big part of the Iran-Contra was the arms for hostages deals, that there were a number of Americans that were held hostage by Hezbollah, which was an Iran-backed anti-imperialist group, and that the USA was giving missiles and weapons to Iran in exchange for the hostages. And so Hezbollah kind of got a boost because the U.S. government, was doing this like secretly. It was meeting with Iranian arms dealers and people like that, and it made a deal where it would give up the hostages would be returned in exchange for weapons being given, to Iran. And Iran got some missiles and some weapons that they then used in the Iraq-Iran war through these backroom deals. And Hezbollah, right, is, in Lebanon, they're an Iran-aligned Shia Muslim anti-imperialist organization. And they were, backed by Iran, and they were a big part of that Iran-Contra thing. Hezbollah had taken a number of Americans hostage, if I remember correctly, and secretly the Reagan administration was giving weapons to Iran in exchange for them turning them over. That's what I think the relationship is, but it was a completely different context. I mean, at that point, Hezbollah and Iran were kind of de-escalating. They were becoming less anti-imperialist, and Iraq was seen as like a bigger threat. Iran, 1988, you had the execution of a number of their communist political prisoners. A number of the communists who'd been arrested during the Iraq-Iran war, they executed them. There was mass executions of communist political prisoners, and then Iran started pivoting into the U.S. camp, and Iran-Contra was kind of the beginning of that. So I guess there's that. Iran is playing a very different role now. Iran is at the center of anti-imperialism in the region. I mean, they're fighting the imperialists. They are backing Hezbollah. They are backing Houthis in Yemen. They are the center of anti-imperialism in the Middle East. Back then, they were pivoting into playing a different role. Throughout the late 80s and up throughout the entire 90s, Iran was really moving in a less and less anti-imperialist direction because Iraq was the main opponent of the United States. But since the axis of evil speech and since the U.S. invasion of Iraq, Iran has kind of been forced into a position of becoming more and more anti-imperialist. And so it's complicated, right? And these things are nuanced and complicated. I mean, the Contra situation, that was related to Nicaragua, right? And that was the U.S. was arming the anti-communist, counter-revolutionary forces in Nicaragua. And the USA was also backing the government of El Salvador against the communists also. And so, Iran-Contra was a very, very different political moment. I mean, that was a very different political moment. Reagan, that was neoconservatism was riding high. Ronald Reagan was a neocon. Yeah, I mean, it was really just a completely different situation. I mean, other than the fact that Iran and Hezbollah were involved, even though they were playing a different role in those times, and Iran-Contra kind of signified them pivoting into a different position. I mean, it's kind of related, but I mean, I don't see direct links necessarily. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's what I can say about that. But listen, folks, it is 1:06 a.m. and I have had a long day, so I do want to thank you all for all your support. If it wasn't for you all, I would have given up a long time ago. I got to say that much. You all have been there for me, and we are on this journey together. Many of you have joined CPI. I met many of you at our recent Chicago workshop. A couple people, we've had like 2 new people join CPI just in over the weekend. And we're going to relaunch the membership coming up, and a lot of exciting things are happening. So thank you all for being here with me and going on this journey. We're learning together. We're marching forward together. Every day we're innovating and we're blazing new trail. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone who helped out today. I cannot be more thankful to Phil and to the Manhattan Family Church and Codon USA. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Folks, we are doing the best we can. And I hope that this election is over with soon. I hope it's also over with quickly. I don't want it to be long and drawn out. And then I'm hoping that we can then move on to bigger and better things after Trump wins. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, we will put on the closing music. I will be back tomorrow night. Don't know why I wouldn't be. So, yeah. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.